It's time now to clear the air and to compound the tragedy of Trayvon Martin. It feels as though some people are now trying to do to him in death what George Zimmerman apparently did to him in life, attributing to this young man a character and a personality that they could not possibly know. And yet they persist in imposing upon his slight young frame an identity that implies criminality, juvenile delinquency, and the all-round characteristics of a troublemaker. This is not only deeply offensive to his family, but also a gross form of character assassination upon a child, a dead child. Stories are now being carefully fed to certain sections of the media that Trayvon was suspended from school after his bag was found to contain marijuana residue, that he once wrote graffiti on school grounds. Wow! That he was part of a stolen jewellery investigation on school grounds that resulted in no charges. And, to top it all, the greatest act of social criminality for a kid of colour, that he may have worn gold teeth. Wow, call the police. Even if these petty incidents were true, what on earth do they have to do with the fact that George Zimmerman shot and killed him?
Let's examine why we had a test on the victim rather than the one that was aggressive. Let's not play this double standard of trying to demonize who is dead and sanitize who was the cause of the death.
That was Reverend Al Sharpton earlier today down in Sanford, Florida. Some right-wingers will do anything to defend Florida's Stand Your Ground law, and they have no problem smearing an innocent kid in the process. Conservative blogger Michelle Malkin wrote that progressives are trying to turn Trayvon Martin's death into a racial litmus test, adding that President Obama's very personal remarks on the matter poured gas on the fire. Yet Malkin had no issue fanning the flames on her right-wing website by posting this picture claiming the African-American kid in the photo was Trayvon Martin. Turns out it was not. The website has since apologized, but needless to say, it was ruthless and reckless.
When Trayvon Martin was first shot, I said that this could have been my son. Another way of saying that is Trayvon Martin could have been me 35 years ago. And when you think about why, in the African-American community at least, there's a lot of pain around what happened here, I think it's important to recognize that the African-American community is looking at this issue through a set of experiences and a history that that doesn't go away. There are very few African-American men in this country who haven't had the experience of being followed when they were shopping in a department store. That includes me. There are very few African-American men who haven't had the experience of walking across the street and hearing the locks click on the doors of cars. That happens to me, at least before I was a senator. I think it's going to be important for all of us to do some soul searching. As difficult and challenging as this whole episode has been for a lot of people, I don't want us to lose sight that things are getting better.
Well, the George Zimmerman trial opened up in Sanford, Florida today. He's the man accused of murdering unarmed teenager Trayvon Martin in February of last year. Well, Zimmerman says it was self-defense, but prosecutors believe Martin was racially profiled. Jury selection started today. Judge Deborah Nelson still hasn't determined whether she will allow testimony of voice recognition experts who say they might be able to identify who was screaming on a 911 call recorded during Zimmerman's confrontation with Martin. Here's some of that.
911, do you need police from medical?
Maybe both. I'm not sure. There's just someone screaming outside.
Okay. And is it a male or female?
It sounds like a male.
And you don't know why?
I don't know why. I think they're yelling help, but I don't know.
Manslaughter is the killing of someone else by the act, procurement, or even criminal negligence, and it's not justified. So if The evidence bears out that he followed. Stand your ground only applies if you are not the attacker or someone that provoked.
Right.
If he was the follower.
Let me go back to Gentile admitting that she lied under oath. Watch this.
You also, though, told Mr. Della Rionda under oath that you'd gone to the hospital. Correct?
He had asked me, did I go to the hospital? I said, yeah.
So I know that you had said that earlier to Mr. Crump and to Ms. Fulton to give a plausible explanation to them for why you didn't go to the memorial service or the wake. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And then when Mr. Della Rionda asked you about it again, you gave the same answer.
Yes, sir.
But you knew that was a lie.
Yes, sir.
Again, you lied because you wanted to give a plausible answer to Ms. Fulton as to why you didn't go to the wake.
Yes, sir.
But on the April 2nd interview, you were in fact under oath.
Yes, sir.
And you knew that.
Yes, sir.
And you made a decision then, because of how difficult the situation you had just been put in, you decided to lie about going to the hospital rather than say something that might be painful.
Yes, sir.
There were a series of lies.
Yeah, and the question is that an excusable lie? Now, the truth is that there's a lot of people amongst us that don't have the stomach or the heart to attend a wake, to attend a funeral and say, I can't go. And they come up with lies and excuses. In terms of lies, it's not a damnable lie. And again, there's this empathy. But it does prove that the witness is capable of telling a lie, even when she swears to tell the truth.
And that's not the only instance.
No, she actually can't keep much of her story straight. She told different stories during the investigation. She's on the stand giving different answers to the same question. And again, this all goes, we can feel sorry for her. We can. But it goes to her credibility. And if she's the star witness, supposedly having to prove that George Zimmerman was the aggressor, we can't believe what's coming out of her mouth. That's a problem.
Look, she said at one point, couldn't hear Trayvon, I could have heard Trayvon, I could. There's been, they may seem small, but cumulatively there's, 4, 5, 6 of these instances.
I am not saying she is a witness who is your dream witness. She was not, and she absolutely hurt herself, and she proved herself to lie, and she admitted those lies on the stands. What I think is important to remember, she is not testifying in a vacuum. You have lots of neighbors and lots of other pieces of evidence that if the prosecution puts it together by the end to say, look, these couple things, whether you believe her, you can accept a witness, you can disregard them or take parts. If you take what she says, the basics that have never changed, and a lot of what she says has never, ever changed, the basics, and you put it with the other, you can still end up with criminal liability, whether it is murder or manslaughter. We're talking about heavy penalties here.
Mr. Zimmerman says that it's self-defense. And when we hear testimony that his alleged victim is engaging in this kind of language and thinking in these kind of terms, then it gives credibility to the notion of self-defense.
He was being followed in the middle of the night while he was walking home from a store.
That's the allegation.
By a cracker.
Right. That's not just the allegation.
Listen to what he just said.
By a cracker.
I don't care who's following home. Someone shouldn't have been following him home, coming home from a store, and that is on videotape. You see him buying the Skittles. You have not only the phone
All right, but let me argue against this. But there's one thing that nobody saw who punched who first. And all we know is George Zimmerman had injuries consistent with his story, a broken nose, lacerations on his head, and when he shot Trayvon Martin, Trayvon was on top of him. How do you overcome that? We heard the screams on the one recording from a neighbor that was calling the police, and there's been some dispute whose voice that is. Was that your voice screaming, or was that Trayvon Martin's voice screaming?
That was my voice. Absolutely.
That was your voice?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's his claim. Is anyone going to dispute that?
"17-year-old Trayvon Martin was walking home from 7-Eleven after buying Skittles and iced tea. Self-appointed neighborhood watch captain George Zimmerman spotted Martin and called a non-emergency police phone line.
This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining and he's just walking around looking about.
Okay, and this guy, is he white, black, or Hispanic?
He looks black.
Are you following him?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need you to do that.
Okay.
After the call ended, the dispatcher sent a patrol car. According to a version of events newly leaked by police, Zimmerman said he had stopped looking for Martin when Martin accosted him from behind. Martin then floored him with a single punch and began slamming his head into the sidewalk. The anonymous police source, who leaked the account to the Orlando Sentinel, said witnesses have corroborated this version of events. The dispatched patrol officer arrived to find Martin dead on the ground. Zimmerman reportedly was bleeding from the nose. But according to Martin's unnamed girlfriend, it was Zimmerman who instigated the confrontation. In an account given to Martin's family's lawyer and recorded by ABC News, the girlfriend said he had just called her before his death and told her he was being followed. He said he was going to lose his followers shortly before she heard Martin ask, "What are you following me for? What are you doing around here?" came the reply. She said she believes someone pushed Martin because she heard his earpiece fall and the line went dead. Neighbors who called 911 said they saw two men wrestling. Someone can be heard calling for help on one of the 911 calls. Seconds later, Martin was dead.